Good afternoon and welcome to the Conway, South Carolina virtual chapter meeting. My name is Merrilyn Macurak. I am the local liaison and Southeast Regional Director and the local walk chair. I have three amazing ladies with me today. We have Chrissie Jenkins from Palmetto Fusion, who's gonna give us the topic of caring for caregivers. We have the OG of caregivers, our founder, Estelle Benson. And we have Kelly McCoy, who's our events and support coordinator. Sorry, I always forget your title, Kelly. Kelly is also CIDP. Those of you that don't know me know that I was diagnosed with GBS in 2006. So next month will be, I guess we could say, my 14-year anniversary. And if you do know me, you know that I care a lot about these meetings, and it's really a sad year that we can't meet in person. So I'm really looking forward to what we can do next year. But that said, I would like to give the update for the walk and roll. As you know, we're not going to be able to do the walk and roll this year. So we're going to do what we're calling virtual walk days. In September, with September 12th, will be our Myrtle Beach one, along with Pittsburgh, Staten Island, Columbus, and Chicago. Please sign up, join. We still need to raise money for research. And for those of you that raise $100, you can get this great t-shirt, and on the back, it has the map of all the cities. So it's a very cool shirt. I was told that after all the walk events, if we have any shirts left, they will be for sale. So we'll have to get with Pam afterwards. The October walk date is October 17th, and the November walk date is November 14th. So please join. We still need to raise funds for research. In October, we were supposed to have Hill Day. Well, Hill Day is going to look a lot different this year, people. We're going to be doing it virtually. So October is Advocacy Month. If you go into our Advocacy Action Center and fill out your information, we're going to need people to write letters, call congressmen, your state, local representatives. It's all easy. It's like click 1, 2, 3. So come on, help us, people. We just need to get moving on this. And some great news out of the foundation office this last week was we added 4 new centers of excellence, which brings our total to 56, 36 in the US and 20 international. So that's a very big deal. And I believe one of them is our first pediatric center of excellence. So that's, really excellent news. And as a former Floridian, I was excited to see now that we have one in Miami. So that's even better. Now we have several in the state of Florida. So that's my news, and I'm going to let Kelly catch you up on the summit and the symposium for next year.
Thanks, Merrilyn. So tomorrow we will be 1 month out from our virtual summit. It will be on October 3rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks to industry support, registration is completely free for everyone. So please register. Even if you can't attend the event live, register so you can get a link to watch it afterwards. We'll let it sit on our website for about 6 months after it originally airs, so you can't miss out. We almost have 500 registered as of this afternoon, which is very exciting. We're really excited to bring this to you. We're going to have some of our Global Medical Advisory Board physicians speak. We're going to have a yoga session. We're going to talk mindfulness and emotional health. It's going to be a really great day. And then the other exciting news is that we have officially rescheduled our symposium for 2021. It will be October 7th through the 9th. It will still be at the same hotel in Alexandria, Virginia. We're still going to do the Hill Day. We're still going to have a walk and roll around the monument. Can't wait to get back together with everyone. We'll also have another symposium in 2022. So we'll have 2 back-to-back to make up for lost time.
And also, if I'm correct, we're going to have 2 one-day conferences next year also.
Yep. So obviously, permitting that it's safe and healthy for all of us to get together next year. Stay tuned. We will announce those in January.
Okay. Chrissie, you want to take it away?
Sure. My name's Chrissie Jenkins, and I'm a medical social worker. I actually work as a patient advocate with Palmetto Infusion Services. We have clinics all throughout South Carolina and North Carolina, as well as home infusion. So we deal with a large number of patients with chronic illness, and we're very invested in doing more than just infusion. So my position was kind of created to help the whole patient, to address emotional needs, referrals, and other types of support needs, basically advocating for our patients. So when I heard about this topic, caring for our caregivers, it's very near and dear to all of us that work in the healthcare field. As a medical social worker with hospice and home health and mental health, and also in infusion therapy, we often say we worry just as much, if not more, for our caregivers than we do our patients, because we see, really how challenging that could be. Caregivers are the backbones of our healthcare system. We call them our unsung heroes. And this group you might think is small. It's actually a very large number of people. I had no idea. I just kind of wanted to look up the statistics. They're saying 1 in 10. That is 40 million people right now are providing unpaid caregiver services to loved ones. So if you're not a caregiver now, the odds of you being one or a patient or somewhere along that spectrum is pretty great. So there's a lot to learn for all of us in the area of caregiving. The mantra we always kind of hear is that caregivers are often called to lean into love that they didn't know possible. That sounds really nice and sweet, kind of like a bright package, packaged up and sent to your house just on time with exactly what you ordered. Unfortunately, it's not that. It's kind of, I guess, described as one of my patients would say, a very beautiful mess. And that really does describe it. I think it's rewarding. It helps with growth. You are doing things you never thought possible, but you also are overwhelmed, consumed, depleted, and not just physically, but emotionally, financially, spiritually. The cost and sacrifice can be very great. The unfortunate thing is that as a society, people don't understand. Unless you're walking in those shoes, you may not understand exactly what it's like to be a caregiver. There's not the recognition, the validation, the training, the support that's needed. People are kind of just jumping into this, doing what they're called to do or required to do with little preparation. And they do the best they can, 1 minute at a time. However, a real big issue is caregiver burnout. And, burnout is, that kind of summarizes a lot. People are suffering. Caregivers are suffering because they are enduring the hard work of caring for patients. And that's not a 9-to-5 job. A lot of people are short on support, and these support groups, of course, are one of the best things to help with that. So I'm glad, since we don't have the face-to-face right now, we actually have this. It's kind of the next best thing to keep us all connected. I think when caregivers are struggling just to keep their head above water, the last thing they're thinking about is self-care. It's either at the bottom of their list or not even on the list, or some people don't even know what that means. They're so invested in doing what has to be done every day, the long, long list of caregiving. And so what happens is they start to neglect their own needs. And that, of course, has burnout and medical ramifications and all of that. So when people ask me what's most important for caregiving, it's pretty simple, although it's easier said than done. First, care for yourself. That does sound very simple and easy. However, most caregivers are not focusing that way. So we really have to kind of help guide patients and caregivers working together. Be gentle with yourself, extend the same grace, love, and forgiveness and patience that you do to your loved ones. Analogy that I've always kind of used in some of my support groups is you're on an airplane, an oxygen mask descends in front of you. What do? First rule is to put your own mask on first to assist before you assist anyone else. Only when we help ourselves can we effectively help others. So I think when people kind of look at it that way, they understand, I have to replenish myself. I have to take care of myself. Otherwise, who's going to do this if I can't anymore? And that's a big concern for for caregivers because they don't know when the end is. They're just, it may be years, it may be weeks, it may be months. There's never any definite. There's a lot of living in the gray area. So the more support that we can offer, the better. Some people are trying to figure out, am I doing okay? Kind of how do I know when this is getting beyond me? When do I know I need a little bit of extra help? Because asking for help, of course, is very difficult for people to do. There are some real interesting, quick, little, easy caregiver stress self-assessments that you can take. It kind of rates you. Some of by the American Medical Association. I encourage people, if you feel like you're especially vulnerable, you're really struggling more, you may not see it, but other people around you might say some things that indicate that they know that you're struggling. And that might kind of give you a little guide to, I might need to get a little bit of help now. So I do encourage you to look into some of that. Also, there are some great resources out there. One of them that I like to give to patients, and it's just because I think we have a patient bill of rights that kind of helps with patients, but we have what's called a Fearless Caregiver Manifesto. And that basically is 10 different items that kind of are our go-to for caregivers to kind of see the principles and commit to practicing them on a daily basis. One of them, for example, would be, I will fearlessly honor my loved one's wishes as I know them to be, unless these wishes endanger their health or mine. And they're very educational, they're very simple, they're very instructive, and I think they help as a guide. So that is one thing I'd be glad to share as an email in conjunction with this speaking engagement today, if people are interested in that. I think it just gives them a little bit of ammunition. Our caregivers are our greatest advocates, so we want to take care of them. And also, I wanted to kind of finish with another little statement on caregiving. Since the caregiver support opportunities are growing now, I think healthcare providers are recognizing the burden and the sacrifice that's involved in caregiving. They are wanting to invest their time and energy and money into helping these support groups, kind of like how Palmetto has kind of partnered with some of these other disease foundations like GBS-CIDP to support in ways that we think will be meaningful and purposeful. If you go to the internet, there are lots and lots of different blogs and online groups and apps and list of resources for respite and everything else under the sun that you could think of that would be helpful. And I have, a long list of those community resources that I could share with you. So basically, we're tasked, healthcare professionals, with how best can we take care of the people that take care of our patients, because it all kind of works together. If we want to get good results, we have to do what we can here. We know they're doing what they can at home. My last little quote here that I think has always kind of spoke to me tells you a little bit about how emotionally intense caregiving can be. When someone we love suffers, we suffer with that person, and we would not have it otherwise, because the suffering and the love are one. I think that's a beautiful statement. I think caregiving is the greatest act of love that you could ever give. It's probably the hardest thing that you'll ever do. Most of my caregivers will say, I don't think I've ever done anything this difficult in my life, but I'd do it all over again if I had to. So I have great honor and respect for caregivers, and anything that we can do to help support them, I think is helping everyone. And if there are any questions or resources, my information are needed. My information will be given at the end of this. Feel free to reach out to me. I am glad to refer out to different types of services, whether it's mental health, advanced directives, insurance, substance abuse, anything that would be helpful, to get resources and support that's needed. Thank you.
Estelle, since you are the first caregiver that we all met.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm not as organized as Chrissie. I have no notes. I have no papers. I'm just speaking from the heart. And by the way, 6 months ago, Zoom was not in my vocabulary. I never heard of it. I didn't know about it. But being able to see, quote unquote, everybody and be in touch is great. We've been around the country in Boca Raton, and Merrilyn and I have been everywhere these last couple of weeks. And it's amazing. Otherwise, we would not have been able to reach out. But, we're here for you. And believe me, if anybody else understands, we do. As a caregiver, first of all, with Guillain-Barré syndrome, nobody's ever ready for it. It's not like you break a bone or you're diagnosed with cancer. Oh, yes, I know all about it. But with Guillain-Barré syndrome, usually when you're diagnosed with it, people have absolutely no idea what it is. And as it progresses, I always used to say, I don't know what's worse, having it or watching it. Because watching it is the most frustrating thing. They're just so helpless. And the only thing is, there's such a, looking back on it, not when I went through it, because there was nothing to read, there was no help, there was no one to call. But with now, there's a positive feeling about Guillain-Barré because it is the only reversible neurologic condition. Even with CIDP, look at Kelly. I mean, she's not running marathons, but she sure is a hell of a worker. She does everything. She has a wonderful relationship. She doesn't miss a thing in life. So we have a rainbow at the end of this horrible experience. And a lot of people don't. So, I mean, it's not, I have a friend with a daughter with ALS. It's a no-win situation. It's spiraling down so rapidly, and that's sad. So at least we have a positive way of looking at it. However, going through it, it can really be a very challenging situation. You know, you get to the point, we once had a psychologist speak at one of our meetings, and it was about caregiving. And when you are tying somebody's shoes and rubbing their back and shaving them and washing them month after month and day after day, sometimes you get to resent it. You say, I want somebody to wash my back, and I wish somebody would tie my shoes and make my dinner. And she said to me, she said to the group rather, she said, it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. And when she gave that permission, so many people, they wept. They said, I don't feel guilty anymore for feeling like that. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty because you say, oh God, here I go again, every day. But sometimes it gets like that. And it's okay to feel like that because it's a normal reaction. In fact, we had one guy, he was a retired doctor, and he was completely paralyzed. I mean, he was nothing moved. And his wife was very attentive to him in the hospital and at home. And what did he suffer from? Not only the Guillain-Barré, but guilt, because he realized that if the situation was changed, he could never take care of her the way she was taking care of him. Think about that. He couldn't have given up his job or his practice or anything like that. So there are situations. What do you do when you're a mother with a single mother with children and you have to go to work and you have nobody to support? So we have had situations over the last 40 years that have really been a challenge. And caregiving it's a species unto its own. You really have to be strong, and you have to be positive. You have to be a cheerleader. Every day you put on your boots with the tassels and you run around like you are, everything's going to be fine. You're just Alice in Wonderland. and you really have to be positive. There are a lot of things that when we would go to a meeting and we would see how some people treated their spouse or their loved ones with this condition or a variant of it, I think, holy moly, that if this doesn't kill them, she will, because she's so negative, she's making it worse. So a lot is your attitude, the relationship you have with somebody. But all the things that happen are your feelings are normal. It's okay to be guilty. It's okay to be resentful. It's okay. And it's interesting, when we do a meeting, Kelly will test to, so will Merrilyn. At the end of the meeting, we separate GBS and CIDP and various, and then we have a place just for caregivers. And let me tell you, usually it all hell breaks loose because they really talk about oh, will this ever end? And this and her attitude. And a lot of people are challenged because if the patient doesn't have a good attitude, it makes it worse. It only compounds the problem. So when caregivers get together, and do we have any questions that came in, Kelly or Merrilyn? Did anybody
I'm
say?
going to be specific. I think really the number one thing we hear from caregivers is how to access emotional support or who to turn to if they're feeling stuck. And I think that you're going to answer exactly how I would answer it, which is to reach out to the organization, reach out to us, because we're not here just to represent and support the patient. I know that forward facing, it feels that way, that we're always celebrating the triumphs of our patient community, but we also really want to nurture our unsung heroes, which are the caregivers, and provide them support. And we have volunteers that are caregivers. Estelle was a caregiver, Lisa was a caregiver. We can make those connections, and I encourage you to reach out and to talk to someone else outside of yourself and really relate.
Everybody has to know that our phone lines are, don't email me because you don't get enough expressed in an email. That's just a printout as far as I'm concerned. It's very cold. But Kelly will attest to the fact that our offices are right next to each other. And how many thousands of times have I spoken to a distressed person or a father, a mother, a sister, what's going to be, how am I going to do it? And then afterwards we talk, oh, I feel so much better. You made my day, I feel so much better. I know I'll make it. I know I'll make it. And that is the best, the sound that I could get, statement. So people have to realize that that's what we're here for. I mean, we're here to help the patient. The patient's going to be all right, but it's the people who are in whose care they are. We are here for you. Call me anytime. I have a call into Kansas to this person whose wife, they not only call because they're upset, they call because they don't know what to do. They don't know whether to trust the doctors. That's another caregiver responsibility. You have to manage the care. You are there to make sure that things are done. And let me tell you, the people who don't have someone, it's very sad because things are not done. They're not turned in bed. They're not looked after. Sometimes, it's just a myriad of different situations. So a caregiver not only has to give the moral and emotional support, but they are really there to make sure things are done. In today's world, you have to be there. Unfortunately, think of our situation now where people can't go into the hospital to stay with their GPS. So we get these calls and they hold up phones and they do the video chats, or they'll be wheeled to a window and they wave to each other through it. I mean, that's terrible. That's a challenge. So today, we can't go visit, but we try to talk to them and help them through it. It's been quite a journey.
Well, I would like to, something Estelle said and something that Chrissie said. I know that when I go visit the patients, a lot of time I notice that the caregiver is really frazzled. I remember when, my first patient visit, the caregiver was so frazzled. I asked her if she wanted to go have a cup of coffee. I ended up spending more time with the caregiver than I did the patient because she was just so frazzled. I spent an hour and a half with her. And when I got in the truck to ride home, I was crying in tears, not because of the patient, because of the caregiver. Because she had 2 kids. I mean, she had the husband, and it was so overwhelming. Look, I have goosebumps talking about it. But it was just.
But you know what? The people, they have to realize, that's another thing. They shouldn't feel guilty about taking time for themselves. It's just as important as caring for the patient. And they must take time because they have a tremendous responsibility. Everybody needs a day off.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we get it in the office, we get a weekend. So, I mean, they do need a day off. And I remember when my husband was in the hospital for 6 months. Well, in those days, they kept you 6 months. Anyway, Thursday night was my night off. My boys would come and they would take care, feed the Bob. And I was able, the shopping while you're here. You know, you catch up on life, you pay bills, you have to do something. Life goes on. It just, everything around you does not stop because you become a caregiver.
Mhm.
So you have a million things happening in your life. And they must realize that self-care is so important. And we are here for, you just get somebody to come in, you know, get people to volunteer, to take them to PT every week, a couple times a week, or to just come and sit with them so you can go to the market.
Mhm.
Things like that are very important.
I think that's a good point. I think, you know, either they don't know that service is available or they don't know how to go about asking for it, but a lot of my work is actually referring out to these particular grants and respite programs and things like that. And most of them are free or very low cost. And every little bit adds up when you are doing this 24/7, you know, and you don't have, you know, the luxury of taking a break from any of the other stuff going on in your life. It really does make a big difference. And I think once people understand that need and they, you know, try that resource out, they realize how important it is to continue to do that. So that's probably one of the strongest points that we try to encourage people to accept that kind of help so you can keep getting up and doing this over and over again.
Mhm.
You know, our foundation was, the prime mission is that is the patient. No patient is alone. And some people start foundations to do research and black tie affairs and all kinds of stuff, but our patient is our number one concern and priority. And along with the patient comes the caregiver. And we have to emphasize that when somebody is distressed, it's funny, one of our liaisons or helpers once said, why don't I tape our overview for the layperson so when you're sick, they can listen to it. So somebody else, a doctor said, listen, when somebody is paralyzed unexpectedly, they're not going to sit right there and listen to a tape. They only want to know one thing. Are they going to live? Or are they going to die? They need somebody to talk to. They need somebody to reach out to. They need somebody to reassure the family so that the family can reassure them. And many times they'll say, oh, after I spoke to you, I went back and I told him that I spoke to the foundation, you're going to be all right. Everything is going exactly as, you know, a classical case and all this and that. So, you know, there's always that reassurance and the constant, it's okay, we'll get through it. We will get through it together.
I love that you say that, Estelle. We is exactly right, because I encourage everyone. I encourage the patient to let that feeling of burden go. I encourage the caregiver to let that feeling of resentment go. They're natural and they're okay. And I felt it. I remember I used to cry to my boyfriend and tell him, you can leave. You didn't ask for this. And one night he said to me, well, you didn't ask for it either. And we're going to be united. We have a common enemy, and we're going to unite together against this common enemy. And that really, for me, changed everything, because it wasn't him helping me and me being helpless. It was the two of us as a team tackling something that just happened. Things happen to all of us, and you have to get through it. Everyone has something. I hope I never have to repay him. I hope I never have to be his caregiver, but I would if I could.
But Dan's a good guy. You're lucky.
He's fantastic, yes. But yes, we operating as a team, or even just, you know, if it's your mother or your child, you know, you have to operate as a team together and stay healthy. I used to be so relieved when he would get a night off. Luckily, my mother is a nurse, so she could take care of me. And he would go out and he would feel so guilty. He would have one beer and come right home. And I would say, go out. I want you to go out. I feel relief when you're away. And he was feeling guilt. So these are all, you know, these are all natural things to feel and feel it. But know that you're not alone, even if you feel that way. Know that we're here, know that there's, as Estelle always reminds everyone, there's 40,000 people in your tribe now, in your corner. Reach out. Don't be ashamed. Reach out for services. Reach out for support.
And I'm going to jump on after what Kelly said, because without Tim, that man had to learn how to do a ponytail. Come on. He had to match my clothes. That man.
That's bad. That's really pushing it. I said, that's really pushing it.
Hey, well, he kept saying you could do it, but, when my hands were like this, I couldn't. So, but, he learned how to do a ponytail. And I'll never forget, my girlfriend from Florida came and she was, okay, I'm going to take you guys out to dinner. And she says, well, what about Maynard's hair? And I went, he said my hair was fine. And Vicky looked at Tim and said, Tim, give her a little bit of dignity. At least do her hair for her, we weren't asking him to style it. Put all the curls up in a ponytail, and because every day you tell me, oh, you look fine, honey. Well, I didn't look fine when Vicky walked in. So it was, So.
You also have to, you must, and I underline that, have a sense of humor.
Exactly.
If you lose your sense of humor, you're out the door. And I mean, I always regale the office. I'll tell such funny stories about my husband. Even Kelly is laughing. I mean, it was hilarious, some of the things, and we never lost our sense of humor. And even when the first time they would give him a day at home from the rehab, go home and spend the day home. We got him in, and I was holding him, and I dropped him. And there he was on the floor. I couldn't get him up. I mean, we managed some of the things, but and in the hospital, oh my goodness, we could just tell one story after another. And if we had lost our sense of humor, thank God he had a good sense of humor, it would have been a disaster. So.
Tim used to put me in the shower, and because I couldn't grab the soap bar, he used to get tired of coming in to pick up the soap. So he learned about the scrunchie and the liquid soap, and he strapped that thing on my hand and squeezed it. He goes, here now. And he figured out ways for me to get my own shampoo and stuff. He changed the bathroom handles so I could do them myself. And I'm like, I can't do these things. So I laugh about it now, but without him, sometimes I know I wanted to hurt him because I was hurting, and I know I lashed out, and that was something that I learned to, and even today I just look at him and he goes, well, you can do that. And I'm like, okay, sure, I can,
But it is a test. I'll tell you something. There's one negative side of all this. And I didn't see it with Guillain Barré, but I saw it in the rehab that my husband went to. Semi-private, we were 6 in a room at that time. That was semi-private. And everybody, it was just a combination of spinal cords and all kinds of stuff. And let me tell you, there were 2 cases where the wife left the husband. And she said, I'm not putting up with this the rest of my life. So boy, is this a test. And you always say this, like Kelly said, this is really a test of how much you care about a person. And it's an expression of caring and sincerity and of love. Because if you don't have it, honey, you're not going to do a good job. And I was appalled that that while they were there, the women said, I'm not putting up with this. So, those of us who did have the care and everything were lucky. Our husbands were lucky. You were lucky.
I know I'm lucky.
Oh, yeah.
I think people say in sickness and in health, and they think that it would never happen to them. That's just words, right? But
Kelly and I can attest to that one. Tim and I we were married. Yesterday was our 19th wedding anniversary.
Congrats. Yeah, I think that
we've been together 29 years. So
someone once told me that the older you get, when you get to the end of your life, you'll remember the good times together, but what you'll really remember are the difficult times that you had to triumph together, and those will be the memories that really bring you close. I think physically we're closer, we got really close, mentally we got really close, no shame in this household anymore, and there's no secrets, and there's nothing, you really have to relent and be there for someone, and it is the ultimate act of love.
So in other words, caregivers rock.
Yeah.
Right. We would have a t-shirt. Kelly, why don't we have a t-shirt?
Okay.
I don't know. We have a t-shirt for everything else in the foundation. We could have a t-shirt for the caregivers. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
All right. Any questions? Any answers? Any what?
What's
I
your
just-
word of advice, Estelle, for everyone? Your ultimate token of advice, other than the put your boots with tassels on every day. I love that. I'm going to remember that every morning. What do you think?
What did you say? I didn't hear
What's
you.
your number one token of advice for someone going through it?
I mean, to me, it's just hang in there. I can't express it profoundly. It's just hang in there. Take one day at a time. Look, it's like going through this COVID thing.
Yeah.
You know, like we were talking in the beginning, Chrissy, of this whole thing. When we hear people complaining, oh, I'm quarantined and I can't go out, we go, oh, you have no idea. We all went through the outbreak. I mean,
Been there, done that.
this is nothing. At least you can stay home and watch television. You walk around, you can breathe, and you know you're well. I mean, we said after what all of us, whether we were caregivers or patients or whatever the association is, we have been through it. We've been there and back. And you know, this COVID thing is, believe me, being quarantined is not my favorite thing to do. But you get through it. You learn that you get through it, and that's the most important thing to keep in your mind. Put one foot in front of the other. And somebody once said, just remember, when you hear the clock tick, it's 1 minute, it's 1 second toward the end. Think about that. When you think about it, when you say, now look, actually, what is it, just September? If we were told in March that we would still be September, Labor Day? I mean, to me, it was just President's Weekend. What happened to everything? And, but we got through it. And we got through it. And it's a good lesson. It's a discipline.
Good advice.
Chrissy, you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much to all of you. I just think seeing how patients and caregivers endure, it just, I'm in awe. And after doing this for many years, I think I learned more from my patients and my caregivers than I have in any class, any training. And it inspires me to continue to do the work that we're all doing, to step it up, to do a little bit more, a little bit better. But just to see how people continue to thrive and survive despite all of this and how difficult it is. I can't imagine, and everyone's situation is different, but I really think there's a great honor and respect to the patient journey and the caregiver journey. And it is a beautiful mess. And I'm glad to be a part of helping a little bit with that support and look forward to doing more in the future. It's been great working with the GBS-CIDP Foundation, and I have sent some new patients to Merrilyn to kind of take under her wing that have found themselves alone and isolated. What do I do from here? I have no idea. So thank you for being a resource for me.
You know, my passion is to be person to person. I don't like emails, and this is actually better than an email because at least we can see each other and talk and see your expression. Mm-hmm. But I served on a focus group for consulting with new patient groups. And somebody said, oh, well, we give them a printout of what's wrong with them. Honey, printout's not going to make it. You have to have somebody talk to you. There is nothing like a face-to-face, person-to-person conversation. I mean, nobody can, that is not fulfilling. And, the same thing as a caregiver, you can read a list of what to do, what not to do. If somebody holds your hand, puts your arm around you, that's the best.
Yeah, I encourage you to attend events, go to a chapter meeting,
sure.
Go to a symposium, immerse yourself with other people who are experiencing what you're experiencing and let it go. We had a session in San Diego where for the first time we split up the patients and the caregivers, and people were nervous. They were reluctant to leave their caregiver or their loved one and split up even just for an hour. And the second they were apart, the floodgates opened because they felt like they could speak freely about their situation. They could speak freely without offending the other person. And I really encourage you to do that. Or just, call us. You can cry with us. We cry all the time. Call us up. We're great criers.
Kelly,
yes.
you tell them about sharing experiences in San Antonio. Who filled in for you for a meeting?
Yes, Estelle. was our sexual health speaker.
Oh,
She was our Dr. Ruth.
she
Great job.
got me in that one.
Yes.
That was the most. You talk about caregivers. We had a neurogynecologist assigned to this very important session, and she never showed up. So Kelly came in and she said, "Estelle, you're on." So I got up and I said, "Well, I'm the new Dr. Ruth." And let me tell you something, just setting the tone, setting the situation, the atmosphere, the condition that they could, and let me tell you, everything hung out. They talked about things they said we could never. They came back, they were so relieved. It was like such a weight off of their shoulders. They expressed themselves, caregivers of people who were having difficulty, and women. I mean, but they were all women. These are some whose husbands were sick or whatever. And let me tell you something, that was of course we don't tape that, but that was a revelation.
Best rated session of the event.
It was.
Yeah, and she drug me into it and made me be bouncer at the door so no men came in.
Remember that? That's right.
That's
She's like, "You're the bouncer," and I'm like,
That's right. I said, "No men. Get
Right.
out of
It's an
here."
open forum. Everyone needs to be able to share freely. No men allowed. And the men had their own session.
Yeah, we didn't care what they talked about.
I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall, but
Yeah, that's right.
But it's just an example of sometimes if you give yourself the freedom to let it go, sometimes you just need to say it and yell it and cry about it and be angry about it and put it out there and let yourself be rid of it. And that's an example of that.
That peaceful surrender, like you just mentioned, I think is so important. And we try to talk about that. Laughter through tears, surrendering that control. And it's a work in progress. Certainly it's something that we all continue to work on. And you hope you have people that can help you along the way. That's so important, that connection.
Yeah.
well, ladies, I want to thank all of you for attending the virtual meeting. To our members out there, if there's a topic or a speaker that you would like to have, feel free to email myself or Kelly. If you've never been on our website, you may want to go on our website. There's a lot of interesting articles, information, and I'd love to encourage you all to join us for the virtual walks this year, like I said. So with that said, join a walk, donate money. We need the money for research. So
Thank you, Merrilyn.
That's
Thank
my
you,
friend.
ladies.
Thank you. And if anybody has any questions after having seen this, send them in to Kelly and we'll get back to you.
Yep,
You
I'll share
want to talk to us? I'm ready. Listen, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not going anywhere. So we're here to talk. We have plenty of time.
Yep, we're all still very much here. Well, thank you.
Thank you all.